Hello there. I'm going to give you a couple of pointers on buying pens that have flexible nibs. They don't often make pens that have flexible nibs for sale in the United States. In Europe, I think you'll have better luck, but in the United States you can find them at pen shows, vintage fountain pen shows that happen once a month or so around the areas around the United States, West Coast, Chicago, Boston. Anyway, you can find pens that were made from the 1900s up to the 60s, and even some that are made today. Again, the pens that I like for writing are pens that have flexible gold nibs, and most of them that I find are pens from the teens and 20s. Here's a Waterman eyedrop fill pen. I'm not even going to talk about the way the pens are filled or anything, but I'm just going to talk about the points. And one way to find out pretty quickly whether the pen will be flexible or not is to put the nib on your fingernail here and press down. And what that will tell you, I'll show you here without my fingernail, that will tell you whether the nib is flexible or not. You can also sort of tell by the shape of the nib. Some nibs are not flexible at all. They're very, very firm, and no matter how far you press down, they really are not going to splay very much. And it's the splaying of the nib that will allow for the flexible line from thin to thick, to thick, to thick. So, look for Waterman pens, often black hard rubber, often not very pretty on the outside, though they can be. They can have sterling overlay. And check first to see about the flexibility of the nib. Most pen collectors, pen dealers, will be happy to let you try out a pen, but always ask first. Most of them now do have ink ready for you to use. Ask first. Another pen that often has a flexible nib is an Eversharp Skyline. They have a sort of a modern 40s looking shape to them, pointed at one end, rounded at the top. They can be striped caps like this. They could be solid caps. They could be gold fill caps like this. And a good half of them have a flexible nib. Some are very firm. You're not going to be able to get that flex. But again, if you set the pen on your fingernail and press down, you should be able to see the nib splay. And when it splays, you'll know that it can eventually give you that flexible line. Pen shows often have pens that have not been repaired. The person who's selling the pen will certainly disclose that, or they should, whether it has been restored. Oftentimes it only needs a little rubber sack replaced. Again, they will tell you whether it's restored or not, or they should. So that's how you find a pen. Again, Waterman, Conklin, Eversharp, Wall, and there's others too, but these are probably the most common. There are Parker pens and Schaefer pens, but they're a little less common to have a flexible nib. When you do find a Schaefer or a Parker, but mainly a Schaefer, if you find a Schaefer with a flexible nib, boy, they're great. And they're very rare, but they're really cool. In terms of the price you're going to pay, there's no reason to get a larger pen than a smaller pen. The size of the pen and the size of the nib itself does not make a difference in terms of the line that it makes. So don't think you need to spend a lot of money on a large pen to get a nib that will do what you want it to do. And number two, Waterman or number 2 size nib should be perfectly fine. The cost of pens can be all over the map, and the same identical pen sold by 10 different people could have 10 different prices, and all of those prices make sense. Someone might restore them, someone might value the nib more than someone else will, someone may have paid more than the other person did, someone might want to sell it. But all of the prices are correct, but do your shopping, do some smart shopping, do some comparisons, and see what you can find. Pay attention to the end of the nib. Here's a close-up of the nib. You have to make sure that the ends are the same, that there's not a piece missing, because if there's a piece missing, then it's broken. The very tip of the nib has a silver-colored metal. It's called iridium, and that has to be there. Iridium, I should write I-R-I-D-I-U-M. Mainly found in meteorites. They also are used on the very tip of these pens. It's hard to see here, but a little silver-colored ball is at the end of the tip, and that will keep the point from wearing down. The gold is very soft, which is great for the flexibility part, but the thing you actually write with, the thing that hits the paper, is the iridium tip, which is very, very hard. Somewhat brittle, but it's very hard. So make sure it has that tip. Make sure that the pen you're looking for is flexible, and ask the vendor if it works. And if all of those things are happening, you can walk out of a pen show with a pen that's just like this, probably for $50 to $100. And this pen here was made in 19, 10 or so, and still working. So 100-year-old pen for that much money is a pretty good bargain, I think. In terms of actually learning how to write pretty, that's another story. I'll talk about that later. But anyway, this is how you find the right pen. Go to a pen show. You can also find them online. There are many people that are selling pens online. But a pen show is a little bit more fun because you can try out the pen. Drive it around the block. See if you like the way it writes. And then anyway, that's the end of this part. So now that you have a pen, I can tell you now in the next video how to learn how to write with it. Okay? Okay. Thank you.